This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, tablet, Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. Remember, current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. One of the product lines that has been around for quite some time, that seemingly almost everybody has had some access to, is the Fire line of devices, whether it be the Fire TV or the Fire Stick or a Fire tablet. There are tons of devices that run on this platform. And based on some information gathered this week, it looks like Fire OS might be in the midst of a major change. Now, the operating system, since its inception, even before its name, the operating system has been based on the Open Android project. Is that what it's called? Android Open Source Project, right? I was thinking Open Web OS.
Yes, AOSP.
The Android Open Source Project, which is the core of what Android is, but without all of the services. Amazon built the services on top of it, so they've got their own store with SDKs for that and for payments and things like that that Google provides on regular Android. There are a number of things built on top of the Android Open Source Project. But apparently Amazon has been working for the last couple of years, possibly as far back as 2019, on building their own Linux that will usurp Android as Fire OS. This comes from research done and compiled on Amazon job listings, some forum posts, and some LinkedIn posts that may or may not should have been public. All of that put together puts a little bit of a timeline of starting development in 2019, coming up through now. The information suggests that the actual core operating system is already in place. It's already done, ready to go. And what is left are the two truly most important parts. One is an SDK, a software development kit, that will allow developers to build apps for the hardware that has access to hardware, cameras, sensors, things like that. And then the most important part, getting developers to care. And that is likely to be the thing that they not necessarily will struggle with, but will be the biggest time sink in this project. Because we know Palm switched its operating system from Palm OS to WebOS. In that switch, they failed to get big developers to follow them. Even developers that had apps on Palm OS did not follow over to WebOS. Microsoft, from Windows CE and Windows Mobile, struggled to get people to come over to Windows Phone 7, 8, 10, and desktop 8 and 10. So we've seen this before. Getting the developers on board is essential. One of the ways that they are hoping that's going to happen is that applications will be built using React Native, which is a JavaScript library, which means web developers can also build applications for this. But WebOS was also based on a JavaScript library, and we know how that went, mostly to iOS. So obviously Amazon has a good place in the market, so they might be able to use that, but Palm had a good place in the market too, and they weren't able to leverage that. Microsoft around the time that they were switching from mobile, Win Mobile 6 to Windows Phone 7, they were the largest smartphone platform. They didn't get people. BlackBerry also, when they went to QNX, BlackBerry 10, also failed to get any app buy-in. So there's always the possibility market leaders trip and fall on that step. And it's always possible that it happens here, right, Abram?
Yeah.
Fire phone.
I mean, yeah, I don't see why they're doing this, to be honest with you. I don't see the point. I mean, well, I mean, I could guess as to why they might want to do this. Has Amazon officially said that they're going to make this move on their devices, or is it we're just reading the tea leaves here?
Mostly reading tea leaves, and public statements, well, public posts that probably shouldn't have been public from employees on the team on forums and LinkedIn.
Yeah. So the thing is, if they were to use this, I mean, if they were to use this OS for the Fire tablets um, that they have, now I could see them using it for other devices. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what's the, what about like the Alexas with screens? Is
Echo
there even
Show.
such a thing as an app for the Echo Show? Is there even an app store for Echo Show? I don't think
Yeah.
there is. Is there?
So
So,
it's a controlled environment. It's a highly controlled environment. But yeah, I mean, like you can install Spotify and YouTube and Netflix and Hulu and all kinds of things onto them. Yeah.
right.
Basically,
So,
so basically, they run Fire TV within them. Is the way it works.
right, right. So, so I think like for those things, they might be able to, or like, what is the Fire Stick run?
So
Is that a
all
version of
of
Android?
all of the Fire entertainment devices, whether it be the tablets, the TVs, the sticks, the Echo Show, all run essentially skinned versions of this same Android base that they
Right.
have
So
customized.
I could see them being able to get away with this on the show and
Hmm.
on the Fire Stick because it's a
Any
much more
anything that's
limited
anything
ecosystem.
that's Fire TV branded. So the Echo Show, the Fire Stick, the Fire TV.
Yeah, I could see them doing it there because I mean that is a pain point for developers, and I don't know what they would do there because I don't know that that's a good idea. But because there's a lot of different streaming services these
Hmm.
days, you might be surprised how many like you know there's if you're only talking about the ones that are major like Netflix and Hulu and Disney or whatever, those would be done very quickly.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about like, well, what about BritBox? Are they going to invest in doing this? What
Right.
about Acorn TV? What about like, there's a bunch of different ones that are like made very specific, like for very specific constituencies. There's like was it Midnight Movies or something? One
Hmm.
that's just like, you know, there's
One
different
one
ones that
that's
give
just
you,
horror. One that's documentaries.
yeah, and ones from different countries. Like if you
Yeah.
want, oh hey, if you want the best of this country, BritBox is like the Finland, but like, you know, there's ones for different countries that you can get. Like, hey, I want to see, I want all the great television and stuff from this country. Give
Hmm.
it to me. Like, there's a lot of there are little services like that. Also there's just like there's lots of like little free services,
Yeah.
things like that. Like, for example, there's one, I mean, there's no reason why this couldn't be done on YouTube, but there's one, I forget what's called, Box or something, that does a steady business in like live streaming religious services or
Hmm.
whatever for people who can't come. So, like, there's just, there's a lot there. So, even there, even if it were just for the Fire TV, they'd be losing a lot of functionality for people,
Yeah.
um, because you're making people have to adapt. And then, keep in mind if there was a significant difference, like there's still an existing ecosystem of millions of people who have the existing Fire
Right.
TV, an
Right.
existing show, and they're not going anywhere. Those are not devices you need to replace that often. So
Right.
there will be people using Fire TV sticks for until they wear out,
And
basically. So
and would they pull a Samsung and replace the operating system on that? Because
I don't
Samsung
know if
did
they could
that.
easily
Samsung did that with the
could they,
watches that were on the market, right? They switched it from what Android Wear to Tizen out from under people, and the app catalog changed, and people got mad.
right. So what is it now? Do they go back to Android Wear?
No, I think they're still Tizen.
I still think they're still Tizen.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah. So I think the reason that they would do this is probably the same reason Samsung wanted to do Tizen. I bet there's some money involved. Like they probably have to pay some amount of licensing for different components of the Android
yeah,
operating system that
yeah,
they're using, and so there's probably savings that they could get if they have all open source stuff that doesn't require licensing.
yeah. Almost certainly. We used to track years ago. We used to track all the lawsuits against companies that weren't Google over Android patent infringements. And at one point, like LG was paying like $23 per handset in patent licensing to companies that for to use Android to companies that weren't Google. So
Yeah,
it could be that exact same situation. But
yeah,
it's an interesting concept. It's always a scary move. Um, LG successfully did it, but they did it long enough ago that smart TVs were still rough when they made the change,
yeah.
and the change was significantly for the better. They ended up with more software support. Interestingly, because they went to WebOS, they went to a web-based development, which also makes me wonder. I wonder if WebOS apps would run on it if it's JavaScript based,
Right.
especially if you didn't need access to any hardware or accelerators or anything. If you're just doing a streaming app for a TV, I bet a WebOS app would work.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that they have to put in though. That's probably for copy protection or whatever. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
But I mean, if you could bring over
I
90% of the code, 95% of the code, and then deal with DRM in a reusable library, in a replaceable library,
yeah,
that would be pretty
uh,
cool.
yeah, yeah. I mean, anyway, uh, I think this would be a mistake for anything where the app ecosystem matters.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh, I mean, there you do, for what it's worth, you do have to make people who make things for the Fire OS now,
Hmm.
while they are programmed for Android, do need some modifications sometimes to work on the Fire tablets because they can't use things like Google Play
Yeah.
APIs, and there's a lot of that that's needed. So they have to do. It's not you cannot in the for the. I mean, I guess depending on how simple your app is,
Right.
you for the most part cannot take the same exact app with no code modification and upload it to Google Play and upload it to
Right.
Amazon's store and get without any modification to the code.
Right.
But at least you're programming for the same operating system essentially.
Yeah.
Whereas
There are
the
there are
whereas
both Android and Xamarin slash Maui libraries that actually take the Google interfaces and rewrite them into into Fire. So all you have to do is just swap out one library and everything rewrites itself. But yeah,
yeah,
it's a pain.
Yeah.
If
Yep.
you touch anything other than the screen, if you touch anything, yeah, there are changes that have to be made. Our we have an app for one of your sister sites. Just for the heck of it, I tested to see if the battery tester would publish through Amazon, and it does. Worked fine, but I'm not touching anything except storage, and that's a unified API. Uh, but outside of that, yeah, anything more complicated than storage, and you definitely have to make some changes. But it'll be interesting to see if they make the decision to go this direction. Like you said, I think it would be a huge mistake to do, for sure, to do on the smaller format platforms, particularly the tablet. I mean, I can't imagine that they're supporting the phone at this point. So any of the tablets I think, would be a huge mistake at this point. There's
Yeah.
an ecosystem, and
Yeah.
it would be original Android style fractured if they tried to play that game now.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't seem like it doesn't, but it may be for a new class of device that's
Yeah,
not quite like maybe for something like the Echo Show. There's not a,
because it
there's
could,
probably,
if the thing they're able to
yeah,
do is get the Fire TV software to run within this new operating system, then everything Fire TV could still run within it. So just like
right,
Fuchsia on the Google screens, I don't remember what they're called, um, on the Google Home screens, they replaced Android with Fuchsia, and nobody, like, pixel perfect. Nobody, even unless you're us, and this is what we do, nobody knew that it happened. An update happened overnight, and everything worked exactly the same on Tuesday as it did on Monday.
yeah,
I think they would have to accomplish that for this to have any chance of working. They'd have to be able to replicate almost down to the pixel all of the experiences for it to work, and that seems like way more work than it would be worth to try and get off of Android open source project. Uh,
yeah,
but that could just be me. But we'll see. If they're planning on doing this, they're going to need a lot of developer support behind it. They're going to have to pay developers to build apps for this thing. So this is not going to be a short turnaround. If they're just, if the rumors are true and they're just in the phase of releasing the SDK to developers and doing developer outreach, you're talking a year to 2 years before it would even be possible, because that's where Google was with Fuchsia. Once core development was done, it took them a year and a half before they actually did anything with it, because they had to have all the stuff work. So it would be expensive to get all the developers on board. It'll take a lot of time. So we probably won't hear anything about this unless Amazon confirms or denies the existence of this project, which is called Vega. If they confirm or deny it, you might hear about it again, but my suspicion is this will be the last time we talk about it. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.